Hello, and welcome to Bloom's Taxonomy of Educational Objectives, a self-paced workshop presented by Bryant and Stratton College. So many of you may be wondering exactly what Bloom's Taxonomy is. Bloom's Taxonomy is a set of language developed to illustrate the hierarchy of thought. The taxonomy was first published in 1959 by Dr. Benjamin Bloom. The taxonomy describes three different domains. The first is affective, the second is psychomotor, and the third is cognitive. In this particular workshop, we will focus on the cognitive domain as it is the most relevant to our teaching methods. Essentially, Bloom's taxonomy is a language for teachers. Just as you may speak French or German, Bloom's is a specific way for educators to ensure that all levels of thought are being represented in the classroom. This language also helps to drive higher level thinking among students. Bloom's taxonomy consists of 6 steps, each of which build off of one another. The first step, or the basis to the cognitive domain, is knowledge. The second level is comprehension. The third level is application. The fourth level is analysis. The fifth level is synthesis. And the sixth and final level is evaluation. As you can see, each of these different skills build off of one another and require the knowledge of the previous step to move forward. Let's delve a little bit deeper into each of the levels at this time. As we said previously, the first level of Bloom's taxonomy in the cognitive domain is knowledge. This is the basis for the rest of the learning that will occur. Knowledge is the recall of specifics and universals, involving little more than bringing to mind the appropriate material. Essentially, this is what we sometimes call rote learning, and just basically learning something and then memorizing it and spitting it back out. Examples of questions that can be asked at the knowledge level are: define the word psychology. When would one use a sphygmomanometer? What are the 3 sections of a traditional essay? There are action verbs that we can use in each of the levels to discuss and serve as a marker for what level we are currently using. Some action verbs that are demonstrative of the knowledge level are define, describe, identify, label, outline, repeat, and select. Let's now talk about level 2, which is comprehension. Comprehension is defined as the ability to demonstrate understanding of facts and ideas by organizing, comparing, translating, interpreting, giving descriptors, and stating main ideas. Essentially, this is the first level of knowledge, but with a little bit more of in-depth thought. Some examples of some questions that can be asked at level 2 are: paraphrase the story, The Yellow Wallpaper, in your own words, or explain the meaning of quid pro quo. Some action verbs that are demonstrative of the comprehension level are defend, describe, discuss, explain, give examples, infer, review, paraphrase, summarize, and translate. Let's now discuss level 3, which is application. Application is the usage of acquired knowledge, facts, techniques, and rules to solve problems in new situations. This is taking that previously learned information and insight and applying it perhaps in a new or different way. Some examples of questions that can be asked at the application level are: use the precedent of Brown v. Board of Education to discuss the civil rights movement, or illustrate how you would use algebra in your workplace. Some action verbs that are demonstrative of application are apply, demonstrate, illustrate, interpret, perform, prepare, relate, respond, show, and use. Analysis is the 4th level of Bloom's taxonomy. Analysis requires students to examine and break information into parts by identifying motives or causes, make inferences, and find evidence to support generalizations. Some examples of questions that can be asked at the analysis level are compare and contrast the job duties of a paralegal and a lawyer, or debate the importance of learning about information literacy. Some action verbs that are demonstrative of the analysis level are analyze, break down, calculate, compare, contrast, criticize, debate, distinguish, examine, experiment, illustrate, infer, outline, question, relate, and solve. As you can see, those action verbs that are required in this level really do include the previous 3 levels, as they are building off of one another to obtain a level of thought where students can analyze information that they have learned. Synthesis is the 5th level of Bloom's taxonomy. Synthesis requires students to compile information together in a different way by combining elements in a new pattern or proposing alternative solutions. One way that synthesis is often used in the classroom is having students create something that is unique to themselves. Some examples of questions that can be asked at the synthesis level are, what changes would you make to solve the issue of global climate change? Or, create a visual marketing poster to promote your mobile application creation. Action verbs that are demonstrative of synthesis are arrange, categorize, communicate, compose, construct, coordinate, create, design, develop, establish, formulate, generate, incorporate, instruct, organize, propose, recommend, reconstruct, relate, and summarize. So on this level, we're having students take the information that they've learned and analyze and now apply it in a new and creative way. The 6th and final level of Bloom's taxonomy is evaluation. Evaluation is the process in which students present and defend opinions by making judgments about information, validity of ideas, or quality of work based on a set of criteria. This is where the metacognition piece of the authentic assessment comes into play, as we're asking students to take a look at what they have learned and evaluate their experiences. Some examples of test questions that can be asked at the evaluation level are, judge if you felt the ending of The Great Gatsby was inappropriate for the overall novella, or how would you rate your experience in this course compared to others? Some action verbs that are demonstrative of evaluation include appraise, assess, choose, compare, conclude, contrast, describe, estimate, explain, interpret, measure, rate, review, score, and support. Now that we've taken a look at the individual levels of Bloom's taxonomy, let's discuss how to use Bloom's in your classroom. All of the courses here at Bryant and Stratton College are created with appropriate Bloom standards in mind. In fact, all of our classes are built in a way in which all levels of Bloom's are met over the course of the class. Even though we've determined that all of the Bloom standards are already met in the standard criteria, there are still ample opportunities for you to use Bloom's in your classroom. Some examples of how to use Bloom's are to be aware of Bloom's when structuring your questions in both discussion and your submission comments. It's important to vary your level of questioning, as asking solely knowledge questions isn't testing for understanding. If we're just asking students to learn information, memorize it, and spit it back out at us, we can't be sure that they comprehend that information and fully understand it. It's important to ask questions across the Bloom spectrum to ensure that students are fully understanding and utilizing the information that they've learned. You can also use the Bloom's verbiage to encourage higher level thinking within your classroom. Take a look at some of the Bloom's taxonomy action verb list, which will be found in the documents of this workshop, and you can see exactly what words you can use to describe various levels across the taxonomy. So why is Bloom's important to use? The first is because it provides scaffolding for higher level questions. It's important to provide scaffolding for higher level questions because we don't want students to just synthesize and evaluate information if they haven't first learned it in the knowledge and comprehension level. Using Bloom's ensures a variety of question types are utilized, which was previously covered. And Bloom's also drives higher level thinking skills. When we're sure that we're asking questions that make students synthesize, create, and evaluate the information that they've learned, we can be sure that they've thought about the subject on a higher level. Additionally, it enhances critical thinking skills. When students are asked to apply, analyze, and then synthesize information, it requires much more skill than just memorizing it. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to seeing everyone's Bloom's Ready applications in the future.